Hi friends, my name is Sarah, and I'm currently the Intentional Interim Minister with St. Andrew's United Church in Lacombe, Alberta. If you're watching this video, it means that you received the link via the email letter that I sent out to the St. Andrew's Community of Faith. Or you might have found it via our website or our Facebook page, or even this channel itself. No matter what brought you here, welcome. My husband John has graciously shared his YouTube channel, The Accessible Faith Project, with us as a place to share my weekly reflections. There are other videos on this channel which are an opportunity to learn more about the Bible, faith questions, and the like. If you'd like to receive notifications when new videos are posted, you can do so by clicking on the little bell icon that says subscribe and signing up. It's completely free. Music, and more specifically hymns, are a big part of my own faith. And one of the pieces that I'm missing during this time of physical distancing is the ability to gather in a community and to lift our voices together in song. And I look forward to the day when we are able to do so safely. Even though we cannot sing together in conventional ways right now, we can still reflect on the powerful words that have been set to music and that have become some of our community of faith's favorites. The words of hymns reflect on Scripture, church community, and our relationship with God. In effect, they are the faith we sing. That is the theme I am choosing to use for this Sunday and for the next 3 weeks, beginning with the hymn, Morning Has Broken. It is a favorite among the St. Andrew's community of faith where I serve, in part because many connected with us have Scottish roots. It was first published back in 1931, and the tune is a traditional Scottish Gaelic one called Bunasan, composed in the Scottish Highlands. Percy Dearmer, the editor of Songs of Praise, felt that there was a need for a hymn that gave thanks for each day of creation, and thus asked Eleanor Fardion, an English poet and children's author, to write a poem that would fit the lovely Scottish tune Bunasan. Her poem evokes the feeling of spring, of morning, and celebrates the wonders of nature and of creation. Like many of the hymns that have become beloved as part of Christian worship, the words of Morning Has Broken reference a number of passages of Scripture, such as Isaiah chapter 11, John chapter 1, Psalm 118, Lamentations chapter 3, and the opening 2 chapters of the book of Genesis, which is our reading for this morning, Trinity Sunday. Genesis 1 is essentially an epic poem, one that proclaims the glories of the universe and at the same time is a defiant declaration of God's power in the face of an oppressive, invading power. It was written at a point in time when the people of Israel were questioning God's power, especially in the light of God's apparent lack of ability to stop the Babylonian army from destroying Jerusalem and the temple. It's a song to the majesty and freedom of God from an imprisoned people who are made to feel incredibly small and insignificant. It proclaims the wonders of creation, while at the same time setting the record straight as to who is really in charge. And it does so by playing on and dismantling what would have been well-known stories that the Babylonians told their captives. It does so by showing that God's power comes not from a powerful sword arm or a great cosmic weapon, but from the simple act of speaking a word. It is those words that are the most powerful. In the beginning, the Spirit of God hovers over the great waters that represent chaos. And God says, "Let there be," and there is. It doesn't show God picking up materials or using tools to fashion creation with the divine hand. Simply by speaking words and saying, "Let there be," God brings order out of the chaos of those primordial waters. But what is even more powerful than this is how God responds and perceives creation. As this Genesis poem unfolds, each day concludes with God seeing the elements of what has come together as being good. The light is good. The earth and the seas are good. The vegetation and the trees are good. The sun and the moon are good. The creatures of the sea and of the air are good. The creatures of the land are good. And when God looks at all that is made, including all of humanity, black, brown, white, a rainbow of shapes and colors, God calls the sum of all of these parts very good. Or as one translation puts it, especially delightful. And the delight and pleasure that God experiences upon having created the world and all that is in it is something that I think the words of Morning Has Broken manages to capture. Within the first two verses, Faryan uses the word first 4 times, referencing the story from Genesis 1 and how God created the world. She writes of the various firsts that new world experienced: the first morning, the first bird, the first dewfall, and the first grass. And with the phrase, praise for them springing fresh from the word, she captures, I think, this contrast that the first chapter of Genesis gets across. That our God is not like those of the Babylonians, using tools or materials, but rather uses the power of the spoken word. Faryan also writes of God's presence with us and touches on the second creation story that is present in the book of Genesis, found in Genesis chapter 2. In this part of the passage, God is imagined as being much closer and much more present in creation than in Genesis chapter 1. God is depicted as creating humanity from the dirt, in Hebrew the Adamah. Hence the name for the first human, Adam, literally means earth creature. God is also described as walking in the garden, a characteristic Faryan picks up on in the line sprung in completeness where God's feet pass. And the third verse of Morning Has Broken takes the stories of creation from Genesis chapter 1 and 2 and uses us as a part of them by using the word ours. Ours is the morning. Ours is the sunlight. Born of the one light, Eden saw play. We are God's partners, as a story that I love for children and for all ages reminds us. Called to work together with one another, with God, and with creation in creating, recreating, and caring for the world. To a group of people in despair and in exile, these passages of Scripture from Genesis 1 and 2 proclaim trust in the power of God to bring you to life in all of its abundance. They depict a very caring and compassionate God who playfully and yet methodically goes about the task of creating and then rests. But God does not stop there. God has a special, ongoing relationship with all of creation. God doesn't create and then abandon. God is present, creating, and as Faryan's words in her hymn say so well, recreating a new day. Even in the midst of the chaos that is happening around the world, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the struggles with violence and racism, I believe this is true. That God's Spirit is at work through agencies such as the Church, the United Way, and many others, giving comfort and hope. Through folks who are stepping out and saying, Black Lives Matter, and for being advocates for justice and equity. In these things and more, I believe God creates for a purpose, and that is for God's purpose, and then continues to be there to support, to nurture, to guide, and to partner with. And so today I would like to invite you to sing this wonderful hymn with me, from your homes or from wherever you are watching this video, in praise and celebration of God's glorious creation and of our call to work together as partners to care for it. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new